Hey, Rich. It's about 10 minutes after 5 o'clock in the morning here in San Diego. And I want to first congratulate you for putting this entire presentation together with the group at Akron, because I think it's phenomenal, and I'm honored to be a part of it. For those of you out there, I met Rich 20 years ago, and where he was his first day as an attending physician, and I was my first day as a fellow, so I was his first fellow. And with ink under his fingernails as he built a Beckman recorder to start recording nystagmus, and me chasing babies around with the infrared oculography. The conversation that you'll hear today is a conversation that he and I began 20 years ago. So I want to thank you for also spurring my interest in nystagmus and the work that I've been able to do as well. I think that what I'd like to do today and this morning is just sort of set a framework for what our understanding is and kind of a background for how to think about this, and hopefully touch on some of the topics that the august body of experts we have will be going to in depth as we go along. And so as we do that, I think one of the things that's valuable is to start thinking about what nystagmus is. I'm just going to go back for a second because there's a video that's the next up on this slide, if we can show it, of a young man who is going to make his eyes wiggle voluntarily. And if we can get that on, that would be terrific. If we can't, that's okay. The point that I'm trying to make is that the nystagmus that we're talking about is an involuntary oscillation of the eyes. And I was going to show you somebody who has a voluntary oscillation of the eyes just to start separating out what our concepts are and our understanding of what's happening in nystagmus. So when we start thinking about nystagmus, or any disease, we start saying, how do we treat it? Because we're doctors and we want to help people. But because we're scientists, we also say, why did this happen?
Skip that one. We'll go to the next
And I think of that as kind of separating us into the Sherlock Holmes investigation, why did this happen? And the Bob the Builder, can we fix it concept. So we have both of those hats that we have to wear as we go along. And as physicians, we're looking to be able to do examining the eye, and the basic examination that you'll do in an office, which includes characterizing the nystagmus, observing the patient, the position that they're in, looking at the fundus, trying to identify what's going on with the eye, whether or not there's a need for glasses. The basic steps that you have to do as a physician to try and understand what's going on. What's interesting about that is that from 1907, I'm showing you a page out of Maddox's book. Maddox is famous in ophthalmology. Everyone knows him. This is over 100 years ago, where he talked about many of the same issues and same concepts, where you look at the field of fixation for nystagmus, the position of least nystagmus.
It's supposed to be shown.
When we cover each eye, what happens to the movement of the eyes? Well, those are the same things you're going to hear the experts today talk about from 100 years ago. And that's really going to be very interesting, because what I want to talk about a little bit as we go along is what's new. But so much in nystagmus treatment and concepts in ophthalmology still rests upon what was done 100 years ago. Now let's take a look at the
Dr.
next
Granet, I'm
video
sorry to interrupt
of a
you.
little girl.
Dr. Granet, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I know you sent us 2 talks, and they're trying to figure out which talk is the one that you're trying to show right now, which videos.
Yeah, the second talk said cases, which would align with the cases I'll be doing later. And the first talk is the one that I'm doing now. It says nystagmus broadcast.
The first video is a girl.
And we talked about that before we started the session, so we could do it.
Let's see if this is a...
That's the talk. You got me back up?
The first video is a girl.
That's right, just go through the... We can go through the talk.
All right, well, this is where it says Media 1, where there's a little girl who you're seeing now who doesn't look like her eyes are wiggling when her head is in that tilted, turned, and tipped position. And then when we move her to a forced straight ahead or primary position, you can see nystagmus, or an involuntary oscillation that takes place. But when you walk into the room, that's the position of her head, turned, looking at TV, where her eyes are actually quiet. Simple observation goes such a long way in this disease. But our doctors can also do something that we've always been able to do. We're able to look in our next video through a microscopic slit lamp. And in that slit lamp, you'll be able to see the movement of the eyes and characterize it. That's not high-tech equipment. There's nothing fancy about what we're using. what we're being able to do here is be able to watch the eye wiggle under high microscopic power.
Great.
So that you can learn a lot just by watching and observation. This is something that doctors have done for 100 years that we've been able to do. So you can have the patient look left. You can have them look to the right, as you see here. You can look for torsional movements, turning. You can look for vertical movements. Very simple and straightforward without any other high-tech equipment. On the next video, you'll be able to see another way to look at nystagmus, which is if you transilluminate, for example, someone who has albinism, you'll be able to see the movement of the eye right in front of you. You can see the phase that looks fast. You can see the phase that looks slow. And here you go. You can see it transilluminated. This is someone with albinism, and you'll be able to see the eye actually moving very clearly. Again, a low-tech way to see how the eye moves. Not everything has to be high-tech. And when we start talking about how to characterize the movement of the eyes, let me show you what I do with patients right here in the office. I'll hold up a piece of paper, and I'll say, imagine your child is supposed to look at an X there, okay? There's an object that you're supposed to look at. Well, in the nystagmus, they start to look at it, and then the eye drifts off, and then it jerks back up. Whoop! And then it looks at it, drifts off, and jerks back up. That form of movement of the eye is infantile nystagmus syndrome. This is fascinating for most people because we often look at the jerk movement and say, oh, the eye's jerking. That's a problem in nystagmus. But actually, the jerk is pulling the eye back to the place it's supposed to look. The smooth pursuit system is failing, and the eye is drifting off the target, and then it comes back. That is an increasing velocity. My friend Avery Weiss is giving me a thumbs down, but I think that's a really important issue for people to remember of which way the eye is moving. So for patients to realize that there's a time that the eye spends looking at an object, it drifts off, and then is pulled back, that becomes valuable. So we've known clinically for many years that there are certain clinical tests that you can look at, like is there an eccentric null? Is there a convergent null and jerk to gaze direction? And is there a jerk to the fixing eye? All of this you can hear more about as we go along. But clinically, that helps you get an idea of this diagnosis that's of value. But so what have we done lately that's actually better? Well, now we know, and we'll catch up real quick. Now we know that we have eye movement recordings, as I just drew to show you. Those eye movement recordings have given us so much information to allow us to understand nystagmus better. And in fact, there's a really interesting question that's going to come up. The question is, what do we do about treating? And again, we say if we don't understand why it's occurring, we don't know why you have to treat. So 100 years ago, Maddox said that you operate as early as life and possible for things that are blocking vision, like cataracts or leukomata. He said if the position of least nystagmus for each eye, and we lost our slides again, if the position of least nystagmus for each eye separately is such that the operations on the ocular muscles might make them coincide, then you can go ahead and operate. And then he says that in exceptional cases, tenotomy or advancement might also work. That was the state of the art for a long time. And then in the 1950s, Anderson publishes his book and publishes and presents his information that says there is a way to work on the torticollis, that if a child's head is turned, you can operate on the muscles of the eye to straighten the head out. Well, this may be the most important thing I say all day, so bear with me for a moment. Because he writes in his book, it has been found that such an operation not only lessens the torticollis, but may also improve vision by lessening the nystagmus itself. Now, I put a picture of our friend Lou DeLoso up there. And hi, Lou. Lou shares my son's birthday in March. And the reason why I put it up there is because between Lou and Rich stating it to me, and I know this was Lou originally, the question came, if the surgery was simply to move the null point,
nobody's seeing any slides.
Was the least, then why did the nystagmus change? If all we were doing was an orthopedic procedure to change the head position, why did the quality of the nystagmus change and the vision improve? Why wasn't the vision the same as when the child had their head in their position where the null point existed? Why does the vision get better? And without answering that question, we're leaving out a major point in nystagmus. If we don't explain why the vision changes when we move the head, then we haven't explained what's happening. And so Rich Hurdle said to me, David, nystagmus is two things. When we do surgery, there's an orthopedic component that moves the head, and there's a neurologic component that impacts the vision. And once you understand that, much of what we'll talk about today starts to make a lot more sense. Because without understanding that the nystagmus actually changes, then this doesn't make sense. So we then have to ask ourselves this other question, one that Rich and I have been talking about for 20 years. What is vision? Well, for the person living in the real world, vision is how they integrate information that comes through their eyes, right? But we measure it using black objects on a white background. Someone comes into the office and you say their vision's 20/20 or 6/6. That's black letters on a white background. That's high spatial frequency. That does not tell us what the real world is. We might have detection vision. We might have recognition for minimal object size, resolution vision, hyperacuity, localization.
Hey, Dave.
But that's not.
Hey, Dave. We lost your talk here. We're going to get it back. All right. But we need about 3 minutes to kind of reboot everything. So.
Okay. Well,
all
I
right.
think I can keep talking for a lot of this anyway, Rich.
What's that?
So it's not to slow us down.
No, it's going to
talk through a lot of this either way.
We're going to have to reboot the Adobe system, right? Is that what you're saying, Mark? Yeah. Just give us a minute. The audience will still be watching the thing, but for the faculty, we have to reboot the system. The Adobe system froze up. So give us a minute here.
Can you see your slides, Dave?
I can see my slides.
Oh, you can?
No one else
Okay.
can. But they're not advancing for anyone else for some reason. Adobe's.
I can also see the slides, but I have to advance it myself.
Right,
They're
that's not how it's
automatically.
How come we don't see it?
Oh, you know what? We have to advance them ourselves.
No, it should be fine now.
I just so maybe if Dave indicates
No.
next slide every time he wants to change a slide.
All right. Nobody advance the slides. It'll work now. Go ahead.
All right, Dave. Now we're all synced up, man. Go ahead.
Well, that was easy.
Yeah.
It's amazing that the technology is working this well. So I'm pretty amazed as we start. So what I was basically saying is how we define vision. And how we define vision as doctors may be very different than how a patient defines vision, what they see. So the idea here is that, is it black letters on a white screen? Is it the mental state affects vision? Are we talking about near vision, distance vision, our ability to navigate the world, our ability to walk into a room and deal with it? Our vision in space, is it only in one plane? Is vision an actual 3D space of what we can see near us, further away from us, and how we navigate? Here's a picture of my family in Paolo Nucci. I don't know if Paolo's on, but that's in Italy, and it's their favorite place. There's not a lot of black and white there. There's a lot of color. There's a lot of activity that's going on. This is in Venice, and there are boats in the background. And the video, that's what Media 4 is, I put in there because it might be a little bit of a black and white world with a black puck on the white ice where my son is playing ice hockey, but there's a lot of movement going on. There's a lot of things happening that you have to integrate in. So when we start saying vision, it's just high spatial frequency of black letters on a white background, it misses so much of what nystagmus can do to someone and what vision really is. In his book, Gunther von Norden said, strabismology and nystagmus are such a multifaceted discipline that it overlaps with physiology, physiologic optics, and neurology, neurophysiology, and yes, philosophy. Well, what we want to do here is, and the slides are self-advancing, but I hope they'll stop now. We want to
Yeah, guys. Okay, let me stop you for a second and explain what's happened. We've been doing this for 5 years. This is the first time this has happened. Nobody touch anything on the screen except the presenter. So don't click sync. Don't advance the slides. Please just let Dr. Granet do all the work, and then it will work. If you click sync, it stops the ability for him to advance the slides. So just please let the slides go with Dr. Granet, and we'll be perfect. Thanks.
Yeah, my slides are not moving now, and I see them change on the video screen. So it looks like they're going in the right direction now. I'm trying to get it back to where we should be.
Couple more.
It looks like somebody's still trying to advance them when I'm trying to get them going back.
Okay, guys, stop. Just let him control.
I'm gonna make.
Mark, just let him control it.
Yeah, I'm happy to control it if I can.
Okay, go ahead. We won't touch it.
Thank you. Nope, somebody else.
I think some of the faculty are still advancing the slides. Is that what's...
I've just removed everyone.
Okay, we've just removed the ability from everyone to do that anymore, so...
All right, am I still able to?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. Well, what I see on my screen and what the video is are two different.
Right, you will. The video will be different because it's a 10-second delay what the audience sees.
That's fine. Okay. I'm trying to get my slides. I see Todd. Hey, Todd.
Hey.
I see the panel, and my slides are now starting to come back, but they're still not there.
So someone must be advancing them. Is that what's going on, Mark?
No, no one's touching.
They're just
there's
automatically
no way.
advancing. It's like the slide
Needs someone to
program.
hit the play button. When you click the play button, they advance
Yeah.
one by one by one.
Right. There we go.
I'm not touching anything.
No, now it's going back.
Okay, now it looks like I got
someone's
control.
controlling that.
I think
That's
Mark's
me.
doing it, but
Okay.
I'm not hearing anything. Is that what you're doing, Mark? Are you going back?
Yeah, now I'm not touching.
Okay, now
think
it's
I
all
am.
you. And if, but
I got it.
You got it?
All right.
Okay.
just
So-
don't. Yeah,
So here we go.
good.
So the basic idea was that there was a lot of philosophy that was involved in this, and I think one of the things that the crowd that's online with us, the research that some of the people are going to hear from has done is change it from philosophy to science. And I think that's what we've been trying to do. Rich Hurdle put together the classification of eye movement abnormalities at the NIH, and if you look carefully at the picture, you'll see several of the people who are online with us today who are in this photograph, including Rich, Lou, me, and some of the others that were all there, to redefine even the terminology that we use, to put a little bit more science involved in this. Lou DeLoso gave us this, which, Lou, I hope you're going to explain because I still don't understand it. But I do understand this, which is the idea that the afferent and efferent systems need to talk to each other. And they need to talk to each other during development, and there has to be crosstalk to get a stable oculomotor system. And that's what some of the interruptions are. And if you notice, I haven't used the terms sensory and motor nystagmus because the nystagmus is the same either way. It's kind of an older concept that we've moved past. And so we all have to understand the science part that we have going on now. We understand now that we have clinical trials that have gone on in nystagmus, and you can even see the waveform in the picture in front of you, where on the top it's before surgery, and there's just a little bit of time on the dotted line spending with the patient really looking at an object, and then on the bottom you can see they now spend more time looking at the object. That's a huge advancement for the patient. So every second they're getting more visual information. That allows them to have a more robust visual world and more robust information. So the idea here is that the patient gets more information per unit time, and now they can identify things more quickly. So if you think about it and you take a look at that, and oh, wait, it went away, what was it? You only saw it for a second or less. Did you get enough information to recognize what you were looking at? Well, the patient with nystagmus isn't getting information quickly enough. It's hard for them to navigate the world and to see that this might be a drugstore that they're looking at. Wait, how many of you recognized that when you were looking at it? So now we'll take a little bit longer look, and you can see with low contrast, you don't see it as well. Now that it's there, and you have time to see it, integrate information, you can actually learn more about it. Well, there's a whole host of studies that we'll hear from Rich and other people here, looking at infantile nystagmus syndrome, understanding the waveforms, realizing what those waveforms mean, looking at acuity, contrast, looking at motion, field detection, all of the things that we know of as vision that allow a patient to actually function better. And that's really what we're looking for, is to function better in the real world. That careful planning will allow us not to make mistakes like you see here in this picture. The construction people built a house behind the pole. So if we're going to hear about examination techniques and ways to understand what you're looking at. And if we can show this video of this little boy when he's got nystagmus, he's watching TV, and you'll see his head is turned as he's watching TV. That's the way he watches TV. I come in, and we put simple prisms in front of his head and watch. His eyes going to straighten out. We're going to talk more about him later. Look at that. Just by shifting the image, his head straightens out, and we can make some planning about surgery by understanding how much his head turns and where to go. And then afterwards, you can see his head goes back to the turn. And in his next video, which will be up next, we're going to see what he looked like after surgery. And you'll see that his tongue still wiggles, but his eyes are much straighter, as is his head, as that video comes up and we play the next video. So you'll see that there. He's got nystagmus of his tongue, but look at that. His head straight, just like simple kids. So the question then becomes this question. Is it worth it to intervene to do this at all? Are we doing something that doesn't make any sense for people whose eyes may not allow them to see well? For example, this young lady who has albinism, Kaylee Unacki's given me permission to use her name. She went from 2400 to 2100. She still got bad vision. But from 2400 to 2100, this is what she wrote me on Facebook where she found me. And her, by the way, her college application is found in Rich Hurdle and Lou DeLoso's new book, To End It. Because if you can read it without crying, you're a better man than I am or a better woman than I am. This is what Kayla wrote. Dr. Granet, I'm glad I found you on Facebook. I just wanted to share, to tell you about everything. I am seeing so much clearer, 2400, 2100. And I feel like I'm finally able to focus my eyes. Today was the first day back at school, and I was astonished to find I can actually read the board now. Everyone, including myself, has noticed a dramatic decrease in nystagmus. You have not only given me a chance at better vision, but a huge boost in my confidence in my eyes. She still has albinism. Her vision's still not going to be great in what I would love, but for her, what a change in her life. What a difference it has made. How much it touches us to say that we have made a difference in this girl's vision, not just black letters on a white background. Torin, the next little boy you'll see, if we can get his sound on his video, will be the last video that I play. Because Torin's vision went from 2100 to 2080 after his surgery, and he has optic nerve hypoplasia, and he doesn't see very well in one eye. So I want Torin to share with us his thoughts about what it was like for him after his surgery.
Go ahead and play it.
Torin, how old are you now?
15 years.
And what grade are you in school?
9th.
And do you have any problems with your eyes?
Yes.
What?
I'm nearsighted, so therefore I have to wear glasses in order to see at far distances.
Okay.
I have absolutely no vision in my left eye
Yeah, how come?
due to some sort of a problem.
Yeah, that's right, with your optic nerve, right?
Yeah, optic nerve problem.
And your eyes wiggle some, huh? Let's see if we can show everybody your eyes wiggling a little bit.
I have had 2 surgeries on both my eyes, once when I was 4 years old and once in September of '09.
Did they help?
Yeah,
And how is school going?
pretty good.
Yeah? How's life? What do you like to do for fun?
I enjoy going on my laptop, researching random things.
Like what?
I tend to do research on whatever I may be eating at the
Okay.
moment.
And the fact that your eyes shake a little bit and you don't see well out of your left eye, has it gotten in the way of you having fun and learning a lot of stuff?
Oh, no.
Uh-uh. And does it mean that you shouldn't get into trouble when you do stuff that you're not supposed to do?
No,
And does it mean you don't have to do your homework?
no.
Great. Does it really get in the way of anything?
No, not really.
Okay, cool. Well, thanks for talking to us.
No problem.
All right, bye.
So this little boy's vision is 2080 now after his surgery when he went from 2100 to 2080. Is it worth it? He can get on his laptop. He can have a life. He can do the things that he wants to do. We have all experienced patients who their vision has improved, and it's really an incredible thing to touch someone's life. And I'll just end with this little quote from John Wooden, who in the United States is considered the greatest coach of all time. He coached basketball and for UCLA. And he said, you can't live a perfect day without doing something for someone who will never be able to repay you. The way we touch people's lives by this improvement in their vision, which may not always translate to black letters on a white background, our understanding of the changes that we can make for them in their confidence, in their ability to function, in their speed of recognition, and their ability to walk into a supermarket and realize what's going on in a place that has repetitive patterns, which can fool them. Because now that they have a changed waveform, it translates into changed function and changed vision. What we've done for them in their lives and touching them is part of what our blessings are, where we get to live a perfect day. And I'm living a perfect day right now because I've had the opportunity to share with you some of my thoughts about nystagmus and just give you kind of an overview and a touch,
What
which we're going to hear
button do I
about
hit
in depth
to
over the
share
next
it?
few hours. So with that, I'll turn it
We'll
back to
share
the
it.
crew here. Sorry
You
for the
just bring it
technical
up.
difficulties that we encountered, but I hope everybody appreciated the beginnings of this. And Rich, I'll hand it back to you and back in the studio.
Yeah, I'm going to give it to Rich in a second.
Okay.
Let me just, a couple things. First of all, I want to say, as a non-ophthalmologist, that was fascinating. And I loved that talk. That was, I want to hear it again. But I thank you for giving it. And I want to just make one little technical announcement here. I want to explain to everyone what we're watching, and so everyone, I didn't explain it well enough in the beginning. The audience is watching a very different screen than the faculty. We are watching behind the scenes of what's going on, so the audience is watching a very different video.
Should I hit that?
David, what happened with your talk, I want to prevent again for the rest of the event. Some of the other faculty were clicking buttons, and that was unsyncing your show, and it was advancing the slides. So I just want to ask the other faculty, just only advance the slides when it's your talk. We are going to try something new in a second that we've never done. For Dr. Delosso's talk, he's going to actually share his computer screen. We've never done that before, but we're going to try it now. It looks like it's working well. But before we go into Dr. Delosso's talk, I want to ask any of the faculty, either in studio or virtual, and we see now that we have Dr. Prodluck here. Thank you for joining us. Any comments that anyone has about what's been said? Any disagreements about what's been said, or points that anyone wants to make? Nothing?
I can take it, guys. Fire away.
Yeah. Fire away. No one. Look, they're just blown away. No one has any questions or comments.
I'd just like to make a comment from Australia, David. David, I loved your talk, as always. Part of our problem is selling the new philosophy and the new science to our colleagues. And I think the new philosophy and the new science really involves small, dark letters on a white background. That's what our colleagues call success. And if we're going to sell other types of success, for example, enlarged null zone, then we have to learn how to quantify that in a way that we can sell it. That's all I have to say.
Lionel, I think that's really important, and I'll tell you what I use sometimes now, that because I have these fallback positions. So if I would say to the strabismus surgeons, what was their vision before and after you straightened their eyes? And did you make them ortho? They say, no, we just improved the deviation. So we improved the nystagmus. Why should we, as eye muscle surgeons, if I'm taking it as a purely carpenter, I take the eye muscles, I operate on them, I make the eye muscle function better neuro-ophthalmologically. I've done the same thing as a strabismus surgeon has, but the strabismus surgeon has never been held to those standards. And there is, there's a whole push to improve visual functions in field, in depth, in motion, and also now in the psychological aspect of doing eye muscle surgery, as a push to try and sell strabismus surgery even more. So I don't see why, now I do it because I think it's important from a scientific point of view, but I don't see why we should have to be held to a different standard than strabismus surgeons who do eye muscle surgery. So I've made that argument many times in public, and I think it's a different way to think about discussing this with our colleagues.
There's one other thing. You can take visual acuity at 5 different places, 0, 10, 20, 30, and same on the other side. What is that? 7 different places, and plot that. And do that before and after surgery, and there you'll have, just taking acuity, you'll have a way to show before and after. The peak may or may not change, depending on the waveform, but what will change, and what's really important to the patient, is the breadth of that peak. He will then have good vision across his field, So all you got to do is rotate your little chair 10 degrees, have him read the chart, 20 degrees, read the chart, and so on. As long as the head is with the chair and his eyes have to be deviated. And you now have 7 points, not 1 point, before and after surgery, and you can show the difference.
Great.
Then I think we need to report our results using that information routinely.
I agree.
It should be part of the...
Lionel, I think...
Go ahead.
It's David out in San Diego. Lionel, I think that you're right from a scientific standpoint, but Rich is right that this is holding the nystagmus muscle surgeon to a different standard than the strabismus muscle surgeon.
I'm comfortable with that.
Right, it's okay. but I think that what Rich and Lou and what Lionel, what all of us are saying is that we understand that that we lack the language and the routine way to discuss the change in the patient's ability to navigate the world, and that we hear, I hear parents and adults share this with me physically, almost instantly in children, that there's a behavioral change in their child that is stunning and sometimes with the change in the nystagmus waveform. Our ability to quantify that's getting better. Our ability to be able to report that's getting better. But I think that the change is so dramatic that it's obvious. And you know what, Lionel? When we do strabismus surgery, you don't see that kind of change. You don't see that functional change.
I think we're going to continue this.